Bore da. Hello, croeso mawr, a very warm welcome to you all to this webinar. Thank you for joining us this morning. This event by the Welsh Government Energy Service in partnership with M-SParc. Firstly, a quick disclaimer, we are all obviously working from home due to the pandemic, so please forgive us any sort of slow network connections. We will do the best we can with what we have today. We are going to try and keep to time. We know you're all very busy people, so I'm going to talk you quickly through the chat function. If you have any questions today, if you go to the bottom, you will see something that says chat. You might need to click more first. I will say hello in the chat so you can see it. And that's how we will be talking today, so please make the most of that. We will also be using interpretation. So if you are, oh, sorry, hello. If you are English and someone's going to speak in Welsh, obviously you'll need the translation. So if you click at the bottom, you'll see English and French. Do not worry, it won't be French, it's Welsh, but you need to choose English, please. Don't wait until someone's speaking Welsh to do that. We will start doing that now. So if everyone who needs a translation can click interpretation and choose Welsh, we will test that. Felly, helo, dwi yn mynd i siarad yn Gymraeg rwan. So os ydych chi yn iwsio translation, rydych chi roed bawd i fyny i adal i wybod bod hwnna yn gweithio os gwelwch yn dda. Perffaith, diolch yn fawr iawn. And now I'm going to switch back to English, and you'll notice you don't need to do anything. It works seamlessly, hopefully. Yes, it is. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Hi, Emily. It's Helen here. Hi, morning, everyone. I just wanted to say we have issues joining with the Zoom via the app, so I can't use the translation, I don't think, via the web browser.
Oh, apologies. I'll find out how to do that, and I will put that in the chat for everyone so we can see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen.
Thanks.
That's everything from me. Everyone who's watching is all set up, and therefore it's my pleasure to hand you over to our first host, who is Rhys. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Diolch, Emily. Thank you. Croeso, welcome to everyone today.
Oh, Rhys has frozen. Rhys, I don't know if you can hear me. You're having a little bit of technical issues at the moment. It might be that you're trying to share a screen.
There, so I'll get them on now.
Oh, there we go. You're back.
Hopefully you can see those.
Perfect.
Okay. So, da ni'n gwybod heddiw bod y sialens newid hinsawdd yn sialens sylweddol, a da ni'n gwybod bod y system ynni yn mynd i gyfrannu'n sylweddol at datrys newid hinsawdd. Dwi'n meddwl heddiw dwi eisiau sbio nôl gymaint a dwi'n symud ymlaen a edrych ymlaen. So, os da ni'n sbio nôl i 1996, oedd Gogledd Cymru yn datblygu syniadau a datblygiadau ynni yn y cyfnod yna. Llun yn fama ydi Cwm Dyli sydd yn Nant Gwynant, ac oedd Nant Gwynant yn cyflenwi ynni i Blaenau Ffestiniog. So, i'r rheina sy'n nabod y Gogledd, da chi'n gwybod y gamp o gysylltu y ddwy leoliad yma. Y llun yn fanna, da chi'n meddwl pwy di dyn ma'n y gwylod? Wel, taid di hwn, a dwi'n cofio taid yn sôn wrtho fi am y teulu oedd yn byw ac yn gweithio yn Nant Gwynant, a dwi'n siŵr heddiw bod yna lot ohonyn ni efo teulu neu cysylliadau yn y diwydiant ynni. So mae'n bwysig cofio hynna, mae yn y DNA yn y Gogledd i lot o deuluoedd. Symud ymlaen i 60au, 70au, gathon ni ddatblygiadau fatha Wylfa a Trawsfynydd, ac yn y 80au, Dinorwig sydd hyd heddiw yn un o datblygiadau mwyaf blaenllaw yn y byd, a dwi'n meddwl bod yn enyn lot o falchder gan bobl yn y Gogledd a dros Gymru i gyd, maint y datblygiad a llwyddiant y datblygiad. Mae'n bwysig cofio bod y datblygiadau yma wedi dod â budd economaidd sylweddol i gymunedau ac i bobl Gogledd Cymru, a mae'n bwysig meddwl am hynna yn cyd-destun y dyfodol hefyd. Symud ymlaen i 90au a datblygiadau fel cei conna, symud o glo i nwy, a pwysig yn y cyfnod yna, oedd nwy yn dod â buddion o safbwynt ynni glân, gwella amgylchedd ac yn y blaen. So mae datblygiadau yma wedi bod yn digwydd yn y Gogledd ers degawdau. Ond da ni'n symud ymlaen rwan i'r dyfodol a ynni adnewyddol yn cymryd rôl blaenllaw. Mae'r llun yma'n dangos datblygiad newydd mae Sir y Fflint wedi datblygu yn y misoedd dwytha yn Fflint ei hun, a mae'n esiampl wych o gyngor lleol yn dangos arweiniad yn buddsoddi yn y technoleg yma i gyflenwi ynni glân i grid cenedlaethol. Mae yna ddatblygiadau blaenllaw hefyd gan ynni newydd ar y ffin, a lot o waith yn digwydd yn y maes hydrogen o gwmpas y gogledd hefyd, o Fôn i glannau Dyfrdwy. So lot o bethau da ni'n mynd i glywed am heddiw sydd yn bwysig iawn yn y system ynni y dyfodol. A mae'n cofio, mae Gogledd Cymru wedi ac yn cynhyrchu 82% o'i drydan o ffynonellau adnewyddol yn barod. So da ni'n neud lot, a'n cynhyrchu lot o ynni glân fel mae pethau heddiw. Ond fydd angen lot mwy achos mae defnydd ynni yn amlwg yn cynyddu fel da ni'n trydaneiddio, glysogi a trafnidiaeth. Yn y strategaeth ynni mae Llywodraeth Cymru a y Bwrdd Uchelgais a partneriaid wedi bod yn gweithio arno fo. Mae yna 5 thema pwysig. Dangos arweiniad, a mae hynna'n golygu mae pawb hefo rôl yn y newid yma. Unigolion, busnesau, awdurdodau cyhoeddus a cwmnïau preifat hefyd. Y cydweithio, a dwi'n meddwl bod heddiw yn esiampl wych o cydweithio, dod y bobl at ei gilydd fel bod bobl yn gwybod pwy sy'n neud be, ar draws bob ffin a sector hefyd. A dwi'n meddwl ffinia, da ni gymaint eisiau edrych at y dwyrain, ond hefyd i gorllewin i Iwerddon ac yn y blaen, a pa gysylltiadau sydd yn fanna. Da ni wedi sefydlu grŵp LinkedIn newydd heddiw, a gobeithio fyddwch chi'n cael y cyswllt yna heddiw ac yn gweld bydd o ymuno efo hwnna. Mae eisiau meddwl am y system ynni fel system multi-vector. Mae ffiniau rhwng glysogi, trafnidiaeth a pŵer yn mynd yn llai amlwg wan. A pethau'n dod yn agosach at ei gilydd, a mae eisiau manteisio ar y cyfleoedd sy'n dod yn sgil hynna. A fel dwi wedi sôn yn gynt, y bydd lleol a datblygu economaidd yn hollol bwysig. Mae'n rhaid cefnogi'n bobl a'n cymunedau ni ar y daith yma, a mae'n gyfle i wneud hynna. Mae eisiau bod yn blaenllaw, mae eisiau cael uchelgais. Arloesi pwysig iawn, mae prifysgolion ni yn flaenllaw yn y maes yma, a mae yna ddatblygiadau, da ni'n gwybod amdanyn nhw heddiw, ond mi fydden nhw hefo rôl pwysig yn y dyfodol. So cydweithio fo'n prifysgolion sydd hefo gweledigaeth ac yn sbio am bethau sy'n mynd i fod yn bwysig yn y dyfodol. Dwi'n meddwl bod y pandemig wedi dangos i ni bod pethau'n gallu newid yn sydyn iawn. Pam mae awydd a pam mae'n argyfwng. A mae hwn yn rhywbeth sydd angen cofio yn cyd-destun newid hinsawdd. Da ni'n gwybod bod y hinsawdd yn newid. Da ni'n gwybod bod y system ynni angen newid hefyd. Mae eisiau lleihau gwastraff a wneud defnydd gwell o beth sydd gennym ni. Mae hynna'n bwysig, sy'n eisiau anghofio hynna. Ond mi fydd angen mwy o ynni glân wrth symud ymlaen. Ynni carbon isel. A wneud siŵr bod hwnna'n dod o buddion i'n bobl ni. Dwi'n hyderus ofnadwy bod y Gogledd yn mynd i gael rhan blaenllaw yn y datblygiadau yma'n symud ymlaen at net zero. Y sleid ola yma'n dangos esiampl o system ynni yn y Gogledd. O, da ni'n gwybod, mae yna lot da ni ddim yn mynd i wybod heddiw am rôl hydrogen, lle fydd nwy yn dod mewn, faint o trydaneiddio fydd yn digwydd. Ond dwi'n dangos y fama, mae'r llun y fama, ydych chi'n meddwl, pwy di bachian fach yma, y mab fengiad i hwn, a gath Mac Egni yn 2019. O'n i'n meddwl gobeithio fydd Mac o gwmpas yn 2100. Wel, da ni sôn am net zero i 2050. 2100, be fydd y system ynni adeg yna? So mae eisiau gweledigaeth yna ac i feddwl am y cenedlaethau y dyfodol, a da ni sôn amdan hynna o hyd yn gwaith, a mae'n bwysig cofio hynna. Be da ni'n neud heddiw, mae hwnna i ddiogelu ein cenedlaethau sydd i ddod. So, dwi'n meddwl bod yna lot i fod yn falch o hwnna. Dwi'n meddwl, dwi wedi deud digon, dwi'n edrych ymlaen i glywed gan pawb heddiw. So, dwi'n mynd i basio chi ymlaen i pryderu sy'n mynd i gyflwyno pawb fel da ni'n mynd ymlaen yn ystod y dydd. So, diolch eto.
Diolch, Rhys. Ac cyflwyniad arbennig o dda i osod y cyd-destun i'r bora sydd o'n blaenau ni. Ti wedi crynhoi'r hanes, y treftadaeth, pob peth sydd o ran y sector sydd yn Ngogledd Cymru'n barod, a heddiw bwriad ydy edrych ymlaen beth sydd ar y gweill, beth sydd ar yr agenda dros y flwyddyn sydd i ddod, a felly ti wedi gosod y cyd-destun yn ffantastig. Mi ydw i'n mynd i rhedeg y sesiwn yn eitha strict, da ni'n trio cadw at amserlen bore yma. Mi ydw i wedi gorredeg o blaen digwyddiad fel hwn o awr a hannar. Felly meddwch chi'n falch iawn o glywed mod i'n awyddus i beidio gwneud hynny heddiw ac yn gofyn i bob siaradwr aros at ei amserlen a'i slot yn dwt ac yn daclus. Mi nes ti hefyd gyfeirio fanna, Rhys, diolch i chdi am y grŵp LinkedIn. Grŵp Egni LinkedIn, da ni eisiau creu trafodaeth, da ni eisiau cael sgwrs yn fanno am bob math o bethau sy'n mynd ymlaen yn y sector, felly da chi ymunwch gyda'r grŵp hwnnw. Felly, yn ddi yn droi ac mwyn aros at yr amserlen, dyn ni yn, 2 funud ar ei hôl i'n barod, ond dim bwys, ymlaen â ni, yn siaradwr cyntaf, os gwelwch yn dda, sef Amanda Jones o Gonwy yn sôn am y gwaith o fewn y sector gyhoeddus.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen. If my starts to struggle, I'll switch my video off. Just let me know when you can see my presentation. If someone can give me a thumbs up, great. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'll do my best to stick to my time. So I'm from Conwy County Borough Council. My name is Amanda Jones, and I am my job title is Business Improvement Manager. And I work within the Environment, Roads and Facilities Department, but I've also got the commitments we made back and we declared a climate emergency. So we actually have our plan now. So I'm just going to talk you through the steps that we followed to get to where we are today. So we made a commitment to achieve net carbon zero from our activities by 2030, and we now have a plan to get us to that place. So these are the steps that we follow. Can everybody see the next slide? Sometimes there's a delay. So initially what we had to do was define the scope. So what would be included in our scenarios that would get us to net zero, prioritize those in terms of some sort of plan, and then have a framework in which to deliver the projects that we'd identified. And we've done all this in line with the draft Welsh Government Net Zero Reporting Guide. We appreciate it's still draft at the moment, but we have worked to that guidance. So in terms of the scope, it's quite a detailed slide, and I'm more than happy to share the presentation with delegates after the event. But basically, it's energy use from our buildings, from our vehicles, from our street lights, from CCTV, and it includes, we were measuring those things anyway and have been for a number of years, but some new things for us, which actually come under scope 3, are things like staff commuting and what we call supply chain, which is the procurement of goods and services. So we've managed to calculate our emissions from those as well. What's out of scope at the moment, and that may change, bearing in mind the changes in the way that we've all made to how we work as our response to this pandemic. At the moment, that what is out of scope is homework, energy use for staff. But developing a tool where we can calculate the emissions from home working, just in case that it's something that we want to include in the future. So that's quite a detailed slide, but that just gives you an idea of what is in scope. So what we did is we gathered a lot of data and we did a lot of analysis, and that gave us our baseline emissions, and we used 2018-19 as the baseline year. And as you can see from this chart, the big green chunk of the donut is actually supply chain. So the majority of our emissions come from the goods and services that we buy. And I think that has been the case for a number of organisations that have calculated their emissions. So there's a piece of work to do around that. This is just a league table of the emissions and how they rank. So supply chain accounts for 62%. That's followed by buildings. And then the next one, which was quite surprising for us, was staff commuting. Was much higher than other things that we do, for example, business travel. So we were quite surprised by that. But obviously now everyone's working from home, that will reduce significantly. So having that baseline gave us an insight into the areas we needed to focus on to get to net zero by 2030. So we did a piece of work looking at each element. So the table in front of you there is us looking at our vehicles and our plant, that the mechanical plant that we operate that uses fuel. So we've come up with some actions there that we intend to take to reduce the emissions from our fleet we've anticipated there by about 63%. By 2030, and we've got some further actions there. So at the moment we're looking at switching our whole fleet to electric, going to do that phased approach, but other actions that need to support that and facilitate that are things like making sure we've got the infrastructure in place to support that, reducing our mileage in terms of our fleet, and looking at other technologies. And just to point out, this plan that we have is a living document. So as we all appreciate, technology is time, and whilst electric might be the preferred technology today, we know there are developments happening in terms of hydrogen that may become more sophisticated in the future, and we may choose to opt for that approach, depending on obviously the cost of that technology and how feasible it is to implement. So this is a living document that we review all of the time. So what we've done is based on the cost of the different technologies and the energy costs of today and what we predict will happen in the future based on what we know now. We've been able to estimate what our capital investment is likely to be and what the cost saving is likely to be, but those figures are indicative and they're based on a number of assumptions. Moving on to business travel. So we anticipate, based on the data that we have available to us today, that we can reduce our emissions by 93%. And that is basically by doing a number of things as part of a workplace travel plan. And one of the things we're looking at is a travel policy, a business travel policy, and having some there, things like justification. Business talked about having a hierarchy of travel as part of that policy, with the first point of the pyramid being to eliminate the need to travel, and also not permitting flights, and also expanding our fleet of electric vehicles for business travel. And there are some further enabling actions there. So this is about more home working, active travel, promoting that, and again making sure we've got the infrastructure in place to support that. Even looking at something quite controversial, you may think, is about workplace parking charges, because if you worked in the city in England, you wouldn't necessarily have free parking. If you for work, we do here in Conway, it's a bit of a luxury. So is that a disincentive for people to use their cars when they're traveling to work? So they're the sorts of things that we're looking at. For that, we anticipate there wouldn't be a capital investment, because a lot of the things that we'll do would be there wouldn't be a cost to them necessarily, but again, that is something that is subject to constant review. The next one we're looking at is staff commuting. So as I've already alluded to, it's increasing home working, and also trying to encourage people that when they do commute to work, that we encourage what we call a modal shift. So they move towards more active travel measures, and things like, if somebody does need to travel to work, enabling them to go to a location closest to their home, so that the ability to use active travel measures is easier for them. We need to make it easy for people to make these choices, don't we? So
I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up in a minute or so, please.
great. Okay, and then we looked at buildings, so that's reducing our estate, etc. I'll just run through these. Street lighting is converting to LED. Supply chain, this is about building carbon reduction targets into our contracts. There's a lot of work to do there. Land use, we're obviously looking at sequestration, offsetting. We're also looking at street trees and whether they can, we can include those for our residual emissions. And so this is the chart that gets us to net zero. And this is the structure under which we are delivering this programme. And just to mention before I wrap up, we've actually been selected as well by Welsh Government to participate in a local area energy plan pilot, which we've just started. So I manage this programme. There will be a number of projects covering the different elements to get us to net zero. And then we are looking at plans on how we deal with our residual emissions, which are in the region of about 11,000 tonnes. And we're looking at ways that we can offset that so we actually get to zero. So thank you.
Amanda, thank you very much. And thanks for keeping to your time slot as well. Rhys mentioned in his introduction, didn't he, the importance of taking responsibility. And I think you're showing great leadership over in Conwy. Just the flavour of the plans that you have in the pipeline there showed leadership and responsibility. And I look forward to seeing the plans come to fruition. You also mentioned there the importance of infrastructure. And that leads us quite nicely to our next speaker, which is Faye Morris from SP Energy Networks and the community manager for them, I should say. Felly, over to you, Faye.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the invite today. I'll just share my slides. Is everybody okay and can see those? Brilliant, thank you. So good morning, everybody. I am Faye Morris and I am the Community Energy Manager for SP Energy Networks. SP Energy Networks are the distribution network operator for North Wales, Dee Valley and Mid Wales, Merseyside, Wirral and Cheshire. We're not who you pay your bill to, that is Scottish Power. They sell the electricity and they provide the EV charging points, and they have just now started up their green hydrogen business. SP Energy Networks are a regulated business and we will provide the electricity for the EV and heat pumps, but we won't sell the electricity, but we do distribute the electricity around the North Wales area. We're busy at the minute preparing our network for being used more and in more different ways. So preparing for net zero, what we need to do in ED2 between 2023 and 28. So we're currently going through our price control review, which will determine how much money we get from Ofgem between 2023 and 2028. We've published our DFES, which is our distribution future energy scenarios, and that is listed on our SP Energy Networks website. So we've looked at different scenarios and we've predicted how and what our future electricity network will look like and what we need to do to prepare to meet our customer requirements and needs. So looking at the information that we have on this slide, electrification of transport, we're looking at up to 1.5 million new electric vehicles in Spen over the next 10 years. Electrification of heating, so up to 700,000 heat pumps in the SPN area over the next 10 years. And distributed generation could increase by up to 7.8 gigawatts by 2030. So this is twice as much as we currently generate at the moment onto our network. In our ED2 price control submission, network assessments based on our DFES indicates that the network capacity will be exceeded by up to 1,000 substations, 700 kilometres of cable in the streets, and 65,000 service cables onto our customer homes. So between 2023 and 28, we will need to install 4 new substations each week, and lay 500 metres of cable in the street and 50 service cables every working day. So there's a lot going on our network. There's a lot coming onto our network, and that's what we're preparing for in our next price control review and our net zero ambitions. So on to the next slide, preparing for EV heat pumps and flexibility onto our distribution network. We hold quarterly low carbon connection conferences. Our next one is on Wednesday, the 10th of March. We'll be providing further information and updates on our charge project. So that is how and where you can connect onto our network, our flexibility tenders, and we'll be providing an update on our Energy Local, Uniclean and Angle DC projects. We have 314,000 off gas grid customers across the Spen area, and we need new forms of heating in the next 10 years. We're working on both heat networks and heat pump projects to prepare us for 2030. If you're interested in any of these projects and you'd like to hear more, if you'd like to register as a stakeholder, the link is at the bottom of this slide, and we will be providing the slides after this webinar for you to have that information. So hydrogen, the new technology onto our network. We are technology agnostic. People think that hydrogen doesn't and won't affect our network, but it does, because hydrogen production, storage and transport all require electricity. Hydrogen transport and heating will take demand off our network, but it will require a connection of electricity for the transport and production facilities. We are part of the Net Zero Northwest cluster, and there's a big plan for hydrogen production in the Ellesmere Port area, which will cover the whole of the Northwest from Cheshire and Liverpool up to Carlisle. There's big investment going on in that area, and we're really keen to work with the Welsh Government and local authorities in North Wales to help them stay involved in all the investment going ahead over the border. What we don't want to see is North Wales being left behind. There is a lot of investment and economic opportunities in the Liverpool City region and Cheshire areas, and we're really keen to work with anybody on this call to help make sure North Wales gets some of the benefit from the economic growth. We're proud to be involved in the Ynys Môn Hydrogen Island, and we are also working with other hydrogen production and storage in the Deeside area in Mid Wales areas also.
Faye, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up now, please.
Okay, yeah, so really the message from us is, if you want to contact us to discuss anything, what your plans are in North Wales, regardless of what technology it is, please get in touch with us. And my last slide is information on where you can find contacts into SP Energy Networks. There's some links there with regards to registering as a stakeholder, and we value any feedback we receive on how we can further improve our service and shape our future events. Thank you very much.
Perfect. And diolch yn fawr iawn, Faye, that was excellent. I think Emily shared the link to the event in March on the chat as well, so everyone have a look at that and maybe sign up. Felly diolch, Faye, and over to you, Henry, from the North Wales Economic Ambition Board.
Thank you, Pryderi. I'm just attempting to share my screen.
That's great, thank you.
Can you see the full screen there? Everything fine?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. Firstly to the M-SParc team, the Welsh Government Energy Service team, for arranging this session, and thank you for the invitation to provide an update on behalf of the Ambition Board. So I'm Henry Aaron. I'm the Energy Programme Manager for the Ambition Board. I form part of a portfolio management office that was established last January, put in place to deliver the Ambition Board's vision and to deliver the North Wales Growth Deal. So I'll just begin with a bit of background about the Ambition Board for anyone who's not aware of who we are and what we do. So the Ambition Board is a partnership between the 6 local authorities in North Wales, Gwynedd, Anglesey, Conwy, Denbighshire and Wrexham, the 2 universities, University of Bangor and Glyndŵr, and the 2 colleges, Coleg Cambria and Grŵp Llanfrichon Menai. Also work very closely with the private sector and principally the North Wales Mersey Business Council. And the partnership was established to allow a regional approach to economic development, improving prosperity and creating jobs across North Wales. It was very much founded on the premise that by working together across the region, we can achieve better outcomes in terms of tackling the barriers to growth and to seizing the opportunities for creating new jobs and stimulating economic development. And one of the key vehicles for delivering the Ambition Board's vision for the region is delivery of the North Wales Growth Deal, which is what I'm going to focus in on today, and in particular, one of the programmes, the Low Carbon Energy Programme. So North Wales Growth Deal, I'm delighted to announce, was signed just before Christmas. It's a deal between the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, Welsh Government and UK Government, and it involves £240 million of capital investment into the region, which is split 50-50 between Welsh Government and UK Government and will be delivered over a 15-year period. So the aims of the deal are to build a more vibrant, sustainable and resilient economy across North Wales. We want to build on our strengths such as low carbon energy, tourism, high value manufacturing, just to name a few, whilst also tackling some of the challenges to economic growth in the region, such as digital connectivity. The approach we're going to take in delivering the growth deal is delivering growth that's scalable, that's inclusive and that's sustainable, and that delivers in line with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And another important point about the growth deal is that although it's a £240 million government investment in the region, by investing in a series of transformational projects, we're aiming to deliver a total investment of over £1 billion, and we're aiming to create over 3,400 additional new jobs, in addition to adding £2 billion to the regional economy. Okay, the growth deal is split into 5 programmes, and because of the time constraints, the focus of my talk today will be on the low carbon energy programme. And the first thing I'm just going to explain is the reasoning behind having a low carbon energy programme in the first place. I think this will it's probably stating the obvious to many on the call, but of course we've got net zero targets. We need to decarbonise our economy, and a key part of that is decarbonising the way we generate energy and the way we use energy. And the reason we are trying to capture this within the growth deal is that as part of the low carbon transition, there is significant potential to create clean growth. The transition offers major opportunities to the region, as explained by Rhys and Frederic in introduction, and particularly in the context of now recovering from COVID and UK government's levelling up agenda, is major opportunity for the region. And I really like Rhys's introduction and what he said about energy being in our DNA. I think that's a really important point. You know, we are already a region that is something of a green cluster. We host a significant number of energy projects already. So this was a visual that was put together by the Mersey Alliance and the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, just to demonstrate the scale of activity that's already happening. It doesn't cover everything, but it gives you an idea of the type of energy projects we're already hosting in a region, the R&D work that's going on, and the skills capacity that we already have. And I think what's really interesting about North Wales is if you look across renewable energy and low carbon energy, there's the potential to scale up across all technologies. We've got nuclear sites, we've got tidal resource, whether that's tidal stream, tidal range. We've got major opportunities with offshore wind, onshore wind, solar, hydro, the list goes on and on. So hopefully that provides you with a bit of background as to why we've got an energy programme. Now I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to deliver through the programme and what the objectives are. So of the £240 million within the growth deal, just over £85 million of that is currently allocated to the energy programme. And in addition to contributing towards net zero, there's a strong emphasis on delivering economic benefits for the region, as you'd expect with the growth deal. So we're aiming to create over 800 jobs through the programme. We're aiming to leverage an investment of 600 million at least through our investment of £85 million. And I think it's really important to stress as well that although this is a big injection of capital funding into some big exciting projects, it's just part of the picture. Some of the work that the Energy Service have done, and maybe we'll hear about later, has indicated that there's going to be a massive investment needed into the region to help us, or to put us on track for delivering net zero by 2050. So just to finish off then, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the 5 projects that we are currently planning to support through the programme. So I'll begin with the Mole Ice project, and some of our projects will be delivered by external partners, others will be developed and delivered by ourselves. So by kicking off with the Mole Ice project, I don't want to steal John's thunder because I know he's speaking later, but essentially what Mole Ice would be the first expandable technology agnostic tidal energy site in the world with up to 240 megawatts of power generating potential. And through the growth deal, we would be investing in the infrastructure that connects a demonstration zone to the grid system, which will thereby allow the site to be prepared for developers to invest millions of pounds through deploying their tidal turbines in the site. Really exciting project, cutting edge, opportunity to be an early mover and develop a kind of an exportable industry, if you like, within the region. So that's a project that's delivered by Mented Morn, and it's probably going to be the first growth deal project that's delivered with an aim of moving into the construction phase later this year. And then moving around the screen clockwise, we're working with Bangor University on the Low Carbon Centre of Excellence, whereby we'll be investing around 20 million in new infrastructure at both the M-SParc and at the main campus. And this is all about expanding Bangor University's R&D work and innovation work to support the low carbon transition across the region. Looking at nuclear, looking at other low carbon technologies, but it's really about helping to create the conditions that entice new investment into the region, support business growth and support the supply chain to scale up. So another really exciting project that we're looking forward to work with the university on. And again, moving around the screen, we then got the Trawsfynydd Power Station project. So working with Welsh Government and the development company they've just established, Cwmni Egino, to look at how can we, through the growth deal, help enable the deployment of a first-of-a-kind small modular reactor or an advanced modular reactor at the amazing site at Trawsfynydd. All the infrastructure's there, the conditions are there, so it's really about now looking at how we can enable the deployment of an SMR at that site. And moving around the screen, we've got 2 projects that are at an earlier stage of development at the moment that we are developing as the ambition board. So we've got the Smart Local Energy project, which is where some of the other projects are looking at specific sites. This is very much a regional project where we're asking ourselves, how can we invest in projects across the region to help increase the deployment of renewable energy, maybe overcome some of the barriers to new generation. We heard from Faye there about the grid constraints, and how can we support decarbonisation, as well as, importantly, how can we help Welsh Government deliver their local ownership targets to ensure that the benefits of new projects in Wales support the region rather than economic benefits being leaked outside the region. And then finally, we've got the Transport Decarbonisation project. It's another project that we're looking at across the region. And the current focus is on hydrogen. I think we'll hear a lot about hydrogen over the course of the day. What we're looking at the moment is how can we develop hydrogen, or how can hydrogen help us to decarbonise transport networks? So we're currently looking at some early feasibility work at D-side to understand, is there a demand for hydrogen fuel vehicles? And if so, what options are there for generating and sourcing hydrogen to fuel those vehicles? And if the business case is there, we'll then look at taking forward those concepts and delivering some real projects. And again, working very closely here with a similar project that's going on the other side of North Wales at Holyhead, another project mentor, Morna, leading on, which is the Holyhead Hydrogen Hub. So we're very much looking at what are the integrated opportunities across the region for bringing hydrogen into the mix and helping to decarbonise, whether it's transport or, it's important as well to stress that hydrogen could be used for decarbonising industry or indeed heating. So I will leave it there, Pryderi. Hopefully I've stuck to time. I just want to finish by making a shameless plug, if you don't mind me doing so. The fact that we're recruiting 4 new posts into the Ambition Board team at the moment, including an energy and transport decarbonisation project manager. So I'll share the links on the chat if that's okay. And yeah, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for the opportunity. And if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to respond to them in the chat. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Henry. And they are really good jobs as well. Well worth having a look at. And you've mentioned the magic word that leads us quite nice to Joe Hook from Uniper, which is hydrogen. Joe, over to you.
Good morning, all. Thank you for inviting Uniper to present here this morning. Hopefully, you'll be seeing presentation pop up on the screen.
Yes, we've got it.
Excellent stuff. So yes, thank you very much for inviting Uniper to present here this morning. I'm Joe Hook, a project engineer based at our combined cycle gas turbine power station in North Wales on the banks of the River Dee. And over the next 10 minutes or so, I'd just like to take you on a whistle-stop tour through hydrogen, through Uniper, through our strategy, through hydrogen, and ultimately how this could relate to Wales. So, for those of you who aren't aware of Uniper or haven't heard of us before, we are a leading international energy company with about 11,500 employees and activities in more than 40 countries. We've got around 34 gigawatts of installed generating capacity, which actually makes us one of the largest global power generators. More specifically in the UK though, we operate a flexible generating portfolio of 7 power stations and a fast cycle gas storage facility. We also have our engineering academy, which delivers technical training and government accredited apprenticeships, and a broad range of commercial activities are offered through our engineering services division. So Uniper are driving decarbonisation actively, and we see clean hydrogen technologies at the cornerstone of our strategy to make our entire European power generating portfolio carbon neutral by 2035. We're also a pioneer in the world of hydrogen, and Uniper was one of the first to implement power to gas technologies, using wind power to produce hydrogen and inject this into the local grid at our plant in Falkenhagen over in Germany, built back in 2013. So we see gas as a key enabler on the energy transition. Understanding that I guess that the journey towards net zero will involve steady change from fossil through decarbonised gases and hopefully towards fully green gases. We believe that the flexibility offered through our integrated gas supply and production chain and the broad technical expertise that we hold in board will ultimately be instrumental in supporting all kinds of gases and gas technologies towards the net zero future. So whether natural gas, biogas, hydrogen, our assets and our expertise are ready to deliver and evolve on that. So as a company and relating to hydrogen, we're technology neutral. And what I mean by that is we see that there is a requirement and a place in the future energy mix for all forms of hydrogen production technologies and techniques, ultimately delivering that robust, resilient energy mix of the future. So whether that be green hydrogen production from renewables, whether it be blue hydrogen production from gas reforming or gas splitting, each one of those technologies will play an integral part in securing that resilience. And it's because of this that Uniper's exploring and developing all of our expertise and our experience across the hydrogen supply chain. So I talk about that experience. As I mentioned earlier, we've now got over 8 years of experience, operational experience in hydrogen production through electrolysis from our megawatt scale plant in Falkenhagen in Germany, but also methanization technologies and grid injection. And we're now moving towards understanding and deploying low carbon energy solutions, deploying hydrogen gas turbines. So these, I guess, these early steps and the 8 years of experience have built a really strong foundation so far, on which we're now developing and deploying the next phase of semi-commercial projects across the globe. So kind of 10 to 20 megawatt scale electrolysis plant, and in the hundreds of megawatts for blue hydrogen production. But what does all this mean for Wales? So in the northwestern and North Wales, we have 2 operational assets. Holford Gas Storage, which is a fast cycle gas storage facility just on the outskirts of Northwich. And that has the potential to store 90 million therms of gas. So a huge part of our resilience on the natural gas network. We also have Connors Quay Power Station. So this is an efficient, flexible combined cycle gas turbine plant delivering 1.4 gigawatts of power into the grid. So in line with our strategy towards climate neutrality in our generating assets, we've been exploring and developing a decarbonised pathway for Connors Quay asset and the wider land base in that area. So working with our own expertise in the area, but also working with leading OEMs, technology suppliers and developers, we've actually identified that the Connors Quay asset and the Connors Quay land base is really, really well positioned, both technically and geographically, to offer a broad range of decarbonisation opportunities into not only the local area, but wider. So specifically around the asset, with the facility or the potential to burn up to about 20% of hydrogen in the current asset with fairly minimal investment, we could be offering lower carbon power into the grid fairly quickly. And with the potential through further development and further upgrades to have 100% hydrogen gas turbines on this site, we could be deploying low to zero carbon energy into the grid, supporting and complementing the renewable generation portfolio that we're seeing an increase in. But ultimately that needs hydrogen. So we have an existing connection to the gas pipeline that's proposed for CO2 storage or transport and storage underneath the HyNet project. And that puts this location, this asset, in a really, really good position for deployment of blue hydrogen production. So production of hydrogen from natural gas with the storage of carbon dioxide. And that production can be at hundreds of megawatt scale. And it can be provided, that hydrogen, not only to the asset, but into the local and wider area, depending on the deployment of the wider infrastructure. The green Welsh renewable power coming across the 132 grid into the local substation, and the Irish and Scottish renewables coming in through the interconnectors also puts the area in a really good position for deployment of large-scale green hydrogen production through electrolysis. Shrinking it down a bit, our in-house renewable department is also developing proposals for deployment of on-site renewable power solutions, and with the integration of smaller scale electrolysis plant for a more localized, integrated Connors Quay based project for the smaller local area. And then finally, with our strong rail and road links, the area is really well positioned for provision of hydrogen into the transport industry. So whether that be through the production, the refueling facilities, if you look at the proposals around the A55 link road, the D-side hydrogen hub, it all seems like a really developing and wide potential there. But it's clear that net zero by 2050 cannot be reached by a single site, by a single company, a single network or region. Ultimately, in order for us to secure a robust and resilient low carbon future for Wales or for the wider UK, we all need to work together. We need to share our learnings, we need to align, we need to integrate the plans. And I guess that's why events such as these, groups such as the Welsh Hydrogen Reference Group, why they carry such importance, and why the recently issued white paper and the more local consultation document on hydrogen in Wales, why they are such significant and necessary step forwards in the world of hydrogen, in the world of decarbonised energy. But it's also why Uniper at Connors Quay have been working with a number of key organisations, alliances, governments, to help support and develop that decarbonised future for the Northwest, for North Wales, and for the wider UK. So more locally, we are part of the Net Zero Northwest Cluster Plan Consortium, so as referenced by Faye from Sven there. And over the next 2 years, that consortium will be researching and developing a robust proposal to the UK government for decarbonisation of the Northwest Industrial Cluster, including North Wales. So alongside Uniper's technical contribution into that project, we'll be working with Sven again to act as a conduit into Wales as such. So really trying to help to grow the reach of that cluster. So please watch this space for further outreach from myself and through other colleagues within that cluster plan consortium on how we can really grow that cluster plan to support and incorporate North Wales.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. Is that it? Or is there another slide?
I've got a very short bit left.
Okay, I'll get
so just closing off.
Okay.
So as I've hopefully outlined to you, we think that the Connors Quay location is ideally placed to support a low carbon future. And we're keen to collaborate with other companies, other organisations on the hydrogen topic to ultimately help drive a decarbonised future for Wales. So thank you very much. Now I'm done.
Perfect, and I think that's what events like today is all about.
Certainly.
It's creating those connections and bringing the community together. So thank you very much, and exciting times ahead.
Certainly.
Un siaradwr nesa fydd Grant Paisley o datblygiadau Egni Gogledd. Mae Grant yn mynd i siarad yn Gymraeg, felly efallai fych chi eisiau rhoid y cyfieithu ymlaen. A drosodd i chdi, Grant.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Pryderi. Gobeithio ydych chi'n weld fy sgrin yn glir yn fama. Dwi wedi cael y gofyn heddiw i dod i siarad efo chi am arweinyddiaeth gymunedol mewn ymateb niwed hinsawdd. Ac dwi'n gweithio i gwmni datblygu Egni Gogledd. Need to find a ffordd i wneud fy sgrin i newid i slides nesaf. Greit. Wel, bydd pawb sydd wedi bod yn dod at y digwyddiad yr egni yma dros y blynyddoedd diwethaf yn cyfarwydd efo beth sydd wedi bod yn mynd ymlaen ar ochr yn ei cymunedol gogledd orllewin Cymru. Yn ei Padan Peris, yn ei Hynefon, yn ei Ogwen, yn ei Llyn, Llai, Twrog, i enwi jyst rai yn Gwynedd dros y 7 blwyddyn diwethaf. Mae 10 wedi bod yn cefnogi pobl yn eu cymunedau i arwain ar yr ymateb i newid hinsawdd trwy prosiectau fel yma. A hefyd a prosiectau cadw bydd yn lleol. Dyn ni aelod yn ei cymunedol Cymru, mudiad ar gyfer aelodau a sefydlwyd i roi cymorth i llais y grŵpau cymunedol sy'n gweithio ar prosiectau yn Cymru. Mae gen yn ei cymunedol Cymru tua 60 o aelodau o'r ledled Cymru a thu hwnt. Mae rhai aelodau sy'n cynhyrchu trydan adnwyddadwy yn dangos ar y fap yma ar y dde. Y map ar y chwith yn dod o'r adroddiad blynyddol State of the Sector 2020, felly mae ffigurau yn dod o 2019. Mae State of the Sector wedi dangos 4 cenfyddiadau allweddol. Yr un cyntaf roedd 2019 yn flwyddyn o'r actifiaeth hinsawdd, gyhoeddodd Senedd y DU, Llywodraeth Cymru, Cynulliad Gogledd Iwerddon, Llywodraeth yr Alban a llawer o awdurdodau lleol a gyfwng hinsawdd. A rhif 2, roedd 2019 yn flwyddyn heriol i sector yn ei cymunedol. Fel pawb yn y sector mae sector cymunedol wedi cael effaith negyddol ar ystyngiadau diweddar mewn cefnogaeth cymharthol a strategaeth yn eglur y Llywodraeth DU. 3, mae ynni cymunedol yn chwarae rhan gynyddol mewn arloesi technologol a cymdeithasol. Mae sector yn datblygu modelau busnes newydd ac yn archwilio dilliau newydd arloesol i sicrhau dyfodol carbon zero. To emphasise ar carbon zero yn lle carbon isel. A 4, mae angen arweiniaid a cefnogaeth glir ar ynni cymunedol ledled y DU. Rhaid cefnogi sector i gael mynediad at gyfleoedd newydd sy'n dod i'r emlwg ac yn sicrhau twf ac effaith hirdymor i'r sector. Byddai siarad mwy am y 4 pwynt yma trwy fy nghyflwyniad efo chi bore yma, yn defnyddio prosiectau lleol fel enghreifftiau. Dros y blynyddoedd diwethaf, mae 10 wedi helpu grŵp y lleol yn datblygu prosiectau yn llwyddiannus ac wedi weld nhw yn defnyddio hyder o cwblhau prosiect yn wreiddiol fel ar y slaid yma i symud ymlaen at prosiectau arall. Fel enghraifft, dyn ni wedi helpu ynni Ogwen i fuddsoddi arian o gynllun hydro nhw i roi paneli haul ar adeilad y cymunedol. Mae ynni o paneli wedyn yn gwefru car cymunedol trydenol. Dyn ni wedi gweld grŵp y lleol yn cymryd diddordeb mawr yn drafnidiaeth trydenol, dros y spectrwm o geir cymunedol i rannu ymysg pawb i geir trydenol i sbadino machnad y dosbarthu boed ac yn eich lleol arall. Rwan, mae 2 grŵp dyn ni gweithio efo wedi prynu bws mini trydenol ac mae'n y trydydd grŵp yn aros yn gyllid i gael un hefyd. Un o'r grwpiau o drws i ddrws wedi bod yn gweithio'n agos iawn efo ynni llun a bydd nhw allu redeg y bws arfodir a dryden o flwyddyn yma. Mae 10 yn rhan o grŵp sydd wedi sefydlu cwmni trydenu i gael mwy o bwynt o gwefru carbydau trydenol ledled Cymru mewn perchnogaeth lleol. Y ffordd yma bydd ni gallu cadw mwy o arian yn cylch redeg yn eu cymunedau, yn hytrach na weld o gyd yn mynd i cwmna mawr o bell. A trwy'n prosiect cyd ni, dyn ni gweithio efo grwpau yn y dyffrynnoedd llechi i gael mwy o bwynt o gwefru mewn perchnogaeth y grwpau yma. Wedyn matcho nhw efo ceir cymunedol ac ynni cymunedol i greu cylch cynaliadwy. Mae Gareth Harrison o cyd ni wedi siarad mewn digwyddiad Egni yn M-SParc o blaen. Llynydd, os dwi'n credu'n iawn. Ein prosiect cymunedau cynaladwy Cymru wedi helpu dros 40 o grwpau cymunedol yn Gogledd Orllewin Cymru dros y 2 flwyddyn diwethaf torri lawr a costa ynni trwy wneud adeiladau nhw mwy effeithlon ac yn hyrchu trydan eu hunain. Fel enghraifft, Siop Griffiths yn Penygroes Llynedd, efo help gen 10 y Loteri yn Gymru ac y Fywio Cymru wedi rhoi 4 kilowatts o PVs a do nhw. A di gael batri i fod yn siŵr mae bob uned o drydan sy'n cael ei cynhyrchu yn cael ei defnyddio gen y fenter cymunedol. Eleni, dyn ni helpu Siop Griffiths ynysu ei ffenestri nhw a gosod pwynt o gwefru sydyn i'r car cymunedol trydanol. Bob ddim dyn ni'n wneud yn mapio ar y deddf llesiant cenedlaethol dyfodol, efo ein gwaith yn arwain at y 7 nod llesiant, fel Cymru Gydnerth, fwy cyfartal, efo gymunedau cydlynus a diwylliant bwyog lle mae Gymraeg yn ffynnu. Mae'n dod yn naturiol i gymunedau i weithio yn y ffordd yma. Yn bellach, mae 5 dull o weithio yn y deddf cenedlaethol dyfodol yn gyd fynd yn daclus iawn efo ynni cymunedol a gweithred gymunedol i atal newid hinsawdd. Wrth gwrs, does na ddim rhaid iddyn ni dilyn y deddf yma. Dyn ni ddim yn rhan o sector cyhoeddus, ond dyn ni ddim yn defnyddio hwn fel esgus, fel cwmni mawr, oherwydd mae pobl yn ein cymunedau isio prosiectau sy'n gweithio ffordd yma. Dydy o ddim yn bell i ni symud o prosiectau ynni a nwyddadwy i prosiectau sy'n edrych at newid hinsawdd fwy bendant. Wedi cyfan, yn ein cymunedau y mae effeithiau newid yn cael eu teimlo. Felly, lle gorau i gychwyn gweithredu a newid hinsawdd na efo'r ein cymdogion. Ar ôl mwy na 40 blwyddyn o rybuddion, mae'n emlwg nad yw dull o brig i lawr yn gweithio. Os da ni'n mynd I fod yn llwyddiannus yn y frwydr yn urban yr effeithlon eraill o newid hinsawdd, mae'n rhaid I bobl cyffredin yn eu cymunedau a phentrefi a threfi yn arwain arnyn nhw. A dyma be fydd yn ei wneud dros y blynyddoedd I dod. Mae 10 a 5 grŵp cymunedol dros Wynedd ar fin cychwyn â prosiect efo dros £1 miliwn o arian gen y Loteri Cenedlaethol Cronfa Gweithredu Hinsawdd I siarad efo, a fwy pwysig gwrando ar y pobl Bethesda, Lleberus, Penygroes, Blaena Ffestiniog a Phenllyn I dall be maen nhw eisiau wneud I atal newid hinsawdd. Dros y 2 flwyddyn nesaf, bydd yna 20 o cynulliad hinsawdd, 4 yn bob un ardal, I roi gwybodaeth I pobl. Dengos be sy'n fynd ymlaen yn barod, reni yma fyddar a gwrando am syniadau nhw yn weithredu. Bydd bob ardal yn creu manifesto gweithredu hinsawdd gymunedol, I fwyd o fewn I un manifesto dros yr enbath. Ac mae bydd y Loteri Cenedlaethol yn gweithio efo ni ac yn cydweithio efo 23 prosiect arall dros Prydain I helpu ni tynnu lawn mwy o arian o gronfa gweithredu hinsawdd I wneud be mae pobl isio yn yr ardal nhw. Mae math hwn o democratiaeth gyfrenogol, sef cynulliadau hinsawdd, yn estyniad syml o'r hyn rydyn ni wedi bod yn wneud efo'r ynni cymunedol. Ac fel dyn ni wedi gweld efo ynni cymunedol, bydd yn creu hyder y gall pobl gyffredin wrth weithio gyda'i gilydd yn wneud gwahaniaeth mawr. Mae prosiectau lefel sylfaenol hyn ar arweinwyr gen y cymuned yn grymuso pobl, helpu iddyn nhw'n deimlo eu bod yn gallu. Maent yn rhoi bydd ac ymddyrydiaeth mewn pobl ac yn gyfnewid rydyn nhw'n gweld llaw mwy na disgwyl a gafymaint prosiectau. Nid o buddion economaidd, ymgolcheddol, cymdeithasol diwylliannol o math yn posibl a gafo prosiectau mawr allanol o brig I lawr. Felly, mae'n pwysig iawn I sector yma gael cydnabyddiaeth. Mae'n heiddi gen ei hawdurdod lleol a Llywodraeth Cymru a DU. Os dyn ni cychwyn cefnogi datblygiadau fel rai dwi wedi newydd reni efo chi, yn hytrach na teflu ein heriau'n cyhoeddus ac cwmnïau mawr o dra môr, bydd ni weld lot mwy o fuddion na just jobs. Bydd ni weld sut mae gwlad a phobl yn gallu traws newid I mewn i'n hunan ddigenol, i'n cynaliadwy ac yn balch mae yna arweinyddiaeth cymunedol mewn ymateb hinsawdd. Diolch Brydei.
Ffantastig, diolch Grant. A neges pwerus iawn. Dwi'n edrych ymlaen fy hun I ddarllen yr manifestos ynni cymunedol fel fydden nhw'n dod allan ac I ddarllen yr un cyfansawdd hefyd. Felly yn sicr fyddai'n dilyn y prosiect yna ac mae pwysigrwydd ynni cymunedol a'r ffordd mae'n gallu grymuso a rhoi hyder I bobl yn sicr yn dod allan yn dy gyflwyniad I. Felly diolch yn fawr iawn am dy amser di bore yma, Grant. Drosodd rwan I siaradwr nesaf ni o Brifysgol Bangor. Mae gennym ni Proffesor Bill Lee sy'n mynd I siarad am waith yr sefydliad dyfodol niwclear. Felly over to you, Bill.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm just trying to share my screen here. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to talk just a little about the Nuclear Futures Institute at Bangor University. We're a small group of about half a dozen academics. We are expanding and our contact details are on the first slide, so do visit our website. I think there are a number of nuclear-related strategic opportunities in Wales, not just for net zero carbon by 2050, which clearly we've heard a lot about today, but also for the production of medical radioisotopes in healthcare. People are unaware, but hospitals are just stuffed full of radioactivity. And the vast majority of the radionuclides used in diagnosis and treatment in hospitals are generated from nuclear reactors. They're research reactors. We currently import from South Africa and Europe. Those research reactors are closing. So there's a real opportunity to develop a capability in the UK. And the Welsh Government has recognised that and is developing efforts in that space. In addition, nuclear cogeneration is another opportunity We've heard a lot about hydrogen, but you still have to produce the hydrogen. It takes a lot of energy, and it would ideally be green hydrogen produced without making carbon. And nuclear is one way of doing that. With colleagues from Bangor, I contributed to a Royal Society report on cogeneration. And of course, there's been precedent at Wilver with the aluminium smelter there, which was powered largely using nuclear generated electricity. So there are real opportunities here. In particular, we have the 2 nuclear licensed sites at Wilver and Traws-Fynith. The Magnox nuclear reactors, they're owned by the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, but they're closed down and are being decommissioned. There's an accelerated Magnox decommissioning policy. So Traws-Fynith is the lead and learn site for that. And that again is an opportunity for us here. And there is a proposed nuclear decommissioning research centre led by Sheffield University, which is proposing a hub at Sellafield and a spoke at Traws-Fynith. Wilver, we've heard bad news about the planning application yesterday, but it's still one of the best sites in Europe for large nuclear. And again, I'm optimistic that it will be used for some nuclear reactor developments, and we'll hear more in the next few years. Wilfer is also a potential site for small modular reactors. There's a lot of interest from international companies and the UK's SMR through Rolls-Royce in utilising that site, but also perhaps having a first SMR at Traws-Fynith. There's a site development company been set up, and that site also, as well as being looked at for SMRs, is being considered for this medical radioisotope and research reactor. Bangor University, through the Nuclear Futures Institute, is providing a lot of support for these programs. And in addition, at M-SParc, I'm working with Pryderi and the team there, supporting the plans for a national thermal hydraulic facility, which is the sort of reactor plumbing and enabling you to get the heat out of the fuel, and a low carbon energy centre of excellence that we heard a little about earlier on from Henry. So this is us. We work in a lot of areas listed here. I won't dwell on those. One that should be at the top, which we're going to add, is medical radioisotopes. But we cover the range of topics associated with nuclear energy. We're funded through the Welsh Government and EU funding. We've only been going for 3 years. We've been successful in winning grants and working with other universities in the UK. We're a small team. We've refurbished laboratories for materials processing and characterization, including for uranium active materials. We're developing a thermal hydraulics open access research facility, Thor, at M-SParc, and that is geared towards supporting the national thermal hydraulics facility when it comes on stream there. We work in both modelling and experimental work and link the teams there. So this is our team and the areas we work in. I won't dwell too much on those, but we are an expanding team. And on the next slide, I show young PhD and master's students and the projects that they work on. Nice mix of international, but many local Welsh-speaking students who are spreading the word about what they're doing and the opportunities for nuclear in the region. So they're a nice team of people. As I say, we're expanding. We have funding for 4 more academic positions that we are in the process of interviewing and appointing for, 10 postdoctoral research associates, technical staff, we've just appointed an admin person to support us. So you can see there's a lot of support for a university institute to work in this sector. This is just some pictures of our Merlin facility, our manufacturing and characterization of materials, lots of shiny kit, and we're only too pleased to work with local companies as well as national ones with these facilities. So we're working a lot with various industry partners, many listed here. We're working internationally. I've been on a trade mission with Canada this week, and it's going on this afternoon, so it's a busy day. And we're supporting, as I say, the National Thermal Hydraulics Facility, and these are big numbers. We heard a little earlier on about the Low Carbon Energy Centre of Excellence, 21 million coming from the North Wales Growth Deal, but it's a bigger project than that. And then the medical radioisotope, that's an even bigger project if we're successful with that one, and we're pushing hard. We're also working on fusion reactors and tokamaks, advanced reactors, and even reactors for space exploration. So it's an exciting time and real opportunities for us. The Low Carbon Energy Centre of Excellence, we heard that the growth deal was signed off before Christmas. It provides capital and equipment funding, and Bangor University is involved with 3 bids, including the Low Carbon Centre of Excellence. And I'm the academic project lead for that. We're going to be pretty busy the next few months trying to write a business case to justify them giving us the money. But I would like to emphasize, it's very appropriate for this meeting today, that we're not just coordinating nuclear, but all renewables and cogeneration, and working with the community. I rather enjoyed Grant's talk. I thought that was great. Key person for us is my colleague Michael Rushton, who is sort of leading our work on cogeneration and hydrogen generation, and has quite a vision for what we can do in the region to develop hydrogen capability. Also, he's working with low carbon technologies. It's nice to see all the work on electric cars and transport, but you've got to get that electricity. And if you want it to be low carbon, one of the best ways to do that is through nuclear. I have an app on my phone and I just looked at it. And currently the CO2, the carbon grid intensity is 36.6% from gas, 24.3 from wind, it's a windy day, 14.6 from nuclear, 7.1 from biomass, so chopping down trees in Virginia in the States, great big ones, and then planting a couple of little ones and trying to justify that, 7%, 5.2% from France, where it's nuclear generated, 4.5% from coal, still burning coal in the UK, 3.5% from solar, not very sunny at this time of year. So I think that's me done. I hope I've kept to time, always difficult, but Pryderi hasn't shouted at me, so I guess I'm fine.
You've done well, Bill. Thank you very much for that overview. And as I mentioned in the chat there, do go on the LinkedIn group and start a discussion about the sort of things that we're hearing about this morning. We've had a very good overview already, and we're running roughly on time. We're a bit behind, but I'm going to catch up because next on is myself, and I haven't got any slides, and I'm not going to take 10 minutes either. I'm going to mention the supply chain and maybe the traditional supply chain, and Rhys mentioned the history and the tradition in the area of generating electricity. Well, all of that has been supported by supply chains and by the jobs that we've seen in it as well. So it's not just about the megawatts, it's about everything that's behind that, isn't it? And traditionally, perhaps, we've been talking about civil engineers, structural engineers, but maybe just the untraditional is what I wanted to touch on briefly. We have some fantastic companies over in M-SParc. We've got companies like Paper Trail, who've developing a paperwork tracking system for health and safety and compliance. We've got a company looking at animated technologies. Now, what on earth has that got to do with the energy sector? Well, they develop animations explaining the processes of behind the energy systems for people and for the laymen. And even consultants like Sasha Davis is on the call today. Sasha is starting a new startup in energy, in hydrogen and in the nuclear sector as well. So the sector, it's not about the megawatt, it is about everything else that's behind it as well. We've also got Paul Flower on the call today. Paul is based in M-SParc. He's a surveyor, and he does a lot of work offshore. So there are a number of examples already, and these are the sorts of companies and sorts of jobs that we also want to see. And Henry mentioned in his talk about keeping the benefits as local as possible. Joe also mentioned that the cluster opportunities that we have in the region. So let's make the most of that. We've also had talks this morning from Grant about the importance of community energy and the way that it supports businesses and the economy in the community, but also raises the ambitions of people and confidence of people and communities as well by getting involved. And let's not forget the R&D opportunities. That's also part of this wider supply chain. And Bill mentioned a few of the R&D projects that Bangor University are involved in. And I'll just reflect before I finish, and I haven't taken 10 minutes, more like 3, but I'll reflect on a very interesting event that we had just before lockdown. I believe it was in March, with Morlais and their supply chain event that was very, very well attended over in M-SParc, over 100 people attending, and we discussed for a whole day the supply chain opportunities. So we are on the cusp, and I really do support the motion today that we've heard on the call that we need to keep the benefits as local as possible. But to do that and to do all of that, we need skills. We need people and young people to come through with all the right skills. And I'm very pleased to be working with the Regional Skills Partnership, and Fionn has just sent a message there to us on the panel list about the importance of getting the skills right, getting young people enthused in STEM activities, getting them through high school, secondary school, into tertiary college, which leads me very, very nicely to our next speaker, Paul Bevan from Grŵp Llandrillo Menai. Paul, you're going to talk to us about skills in the low carbon sector. Felly, over to you, Paul. Thank you very much.
I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can see that there. So can someone give me the thumbs up? Great, diolch. Bore da pawb, diolch am y cyfle I siarad efo chi heddiw. Thank you very much for the opportunity to just speak as part of the panel today. I'm Paul Bevan, I'm Exec Director at Grŵp Llandrillo Menai. So we're the FE provider that covers North West Wales. But more than that, we're the largest provider in Wales, 21,000 students, of which 5,000 are apprentices, one of the biggest in the UK. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we are identifying, mapping and responding to the skills landscape in terms of energy, a bit about our strategy and how we are trying to meet future demand. So although the energy landscape is changing, as Rhys said, it's in our DNA in the region, and it's not new, and it's certainly not new to us as a skills provider. I've put on screen here a simplified version of a matrix, which we've been using to talk about the framework around skills requirement. You can see that we sort of view the skills landscape as segmented into 3 areas, those which are specific and focused and relevant to net zero, whether they be nuclear skills, the skills around energy infrastructure, the retrofit around buildings, and all the skills that are needed around vehicles, EV design and retrofit. And then next to that, we've got our renewed skills for low carbon ways of working. So, outside of those skills which are specific to the energy sector, there's a broad base of skills which need to be developed within the existing community, within SMEs, and within those that may have already completed education in order to support the systems that are going to be in place. These are now or just around the corner around gas and hydrogen, the servicing needs for air and ground source installation, solar, which is already an area we've significantly developed, as well as in construction, whether they be the core construction skills, which need to be shifted towards more low carbon buildings. And then the EV infrastructure, which is becoming day to day, whether they be point installation support, etc. And then beyond that, there's the future skills for the low carbon economy, the sort of things which are only really starting to be identified now. The roles that may exist around community energy projects, community generation, energy management and data are likely to be big skills areas which are only just starting to get mapped out now. And the design of energy systems, particularly those systems which might need to be on a local basis. Again, the construction of community energy systems of the kind that we've seen in North West Wales is going to be a really important specialist skill to build. And then when we come to transport, very interesting to hear Conway's plans. You can see new roles starting to develop around shared vehicles, shared fleet, and smarter transport planning. Now, beyond and around those, there's obviously the way in which the low carbon skills will affect every role. We can see developments within the foundational economy in order to take advantage of low carbon energy. And then there's another level beyond that, isn't there, which is where you start to visualize in the longer term what a low carbon energy landscape will do to our broader economy. I'll just say a bit about how we're treating these. Fundamentally, those tailored technical skills, which we're already starting to develop, and we've, did a lot of work linked to the proposed Horizon developments around nuclear in particular, but also for those that are in college and in learning now, or in apprenticeships, we're focusing on ensuring that we build up those tailored skills. And this is where you can see the full-time in college, the full-time apprenticeships really coming through in terms of our delivery. Beyond that, there's a big piece of work to be done around professional development and upskilling. This is where we see being able to take those renewed skills forward, working with those existing providers, working particularly with the SME sector to ensure that they are not overtaken by the developments in this area, but can play a really strong part in supporting the region to get to net carbon zero. And then some sort of blend of those in order to achieve the future skills that we might only now be starting to define. Just to say a little word about what we've been doing on the ground, 3 examples to put before you now. The first is our UK Centre for Wind Turbine Apprenticeships in Ross-on-Sea. So this has been the fruit of a long partnership with RWE, the creation of tailored programs in order to support the technical skills that are required to support wind. Equally in Llangefni, we have our STEM Centre funded through the Energy Island programme there to develop the sort of energy skills that are needed in the region, particularly those around nuclear. And then finally, our new zero carbon training centre at the Centre for Infrastructure, Skills and Technology, also in Llangefni, which will be opening later this year, which has been designed from the ground up to train, the gas fitters, the energy providers of today, the domestic installers of today, but also through our partnerships with Worcester Bosch and others to start to build in hydrogen skills, to include closed loop off-grid systems, battery storage and EV charging, to make sure that we can deliver those professional skills alongside the full-time college programs. But delivering the capability to grow skills is just part of the equation. The responsibility that we hold in that area requires us to work in partnership, and it's essential that the programs that we provide are designed with industry. We take a co-design approach to all of our delivery, and there's a strong emphasis on working in partnership in order to design programs which are really fit for the industry of today and tomorrow. But moreover, it's not just about ensuring those programs are true partnerships, it's also about building the understanding and enthusiasm within young people and professional practitioners so that they take up the opportunities of the future, and so that we can take advantage within the region of the infrastructure developments that we're putting in place. So that's my just brief overview. Diolch yn fawr, Gaderi.
That's great. Thank you very, very much, Paul. That's an excellent overview and very encouraging to see what you're able to offer. And it's just got an interesting start here from the Regional Skills Partnership, looking at the skills for the future, and it's currently projected that by 2024, to fill up the gaps that people retiring and leaving, we need to get another 13,000 people to work in the sector by 2024. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us, but it sounds like you've got a great offer there and that we're making big strides in the right direction. So thank you, Paul. And onwards now to our next speaker, which is Helen Thomas from RWE and the Owl y Môr development. Over to you, Helen.
Hello, hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Great. Can you also see the slides?
Yeah, we got it.
Perfect. Okay, I'll just canter through these. So my name's Helen Thomas. I'm a stakeholder and supply chain manager at RWE Renewables. You probably previously would have known us as Energy Renewables, and we recently completed a merger in July of last year. I'm here today to talk to you briefly an update on the Owl y Môr project, which you can see in this map here is the red area, the extension to the existing Gwyntamore offshore wind farm, which you can see off the coast of Llandudno. We are currently progressing through the consents and development phase. There's some details here, which I won't spend too much time on, but we will share the slides at the end. But yeah, essentially that's the proposed area that we're currently doing assessment on to see if we can carry through successful development of the Owl y Môr wind farm. So our project programme is, we've sort of completed some key phases, including a scoping report, and we're just progressing through the environmental impact phase. And I've got a slide on what we call site selection, which is determining the onshore and offshore cable routes that connect the wind farm to the national grid, etc. So we're doing a lot of work currently ongoing in that. The plan is that we progress through a development consent order and a marine license application next year, and then progress hopefully through to apologies if you can't see that, through to being operational before 2030, ideally in line with those Welsh Government targets. In terms of what we've been up to recently, just very briefly, we held what we call our informal public engagement days. Unfortunately, these had to be held online for obvious reasons, but we promoted via a number of channels, and we received over 1,000 visits to the portal, with this being a first sort of virtual consultation that we've undertaken. It was very much very interesting to see the feedback and the number of visits, etc., that we got. Just to note that this was our informal one, meaning we chose to do it as an extra occasion. Our formal round 2 of public engagement is actually officially in autumn this year. Oops. I mentioned that we'd been working on confirming sort of onshore and offshore cable routes. This is hot off the press. We just released a press release yesterday, and I'd encourage you, again, as I said, I'll circulate the slides, but I'd encourage you to visit the Owl y Môr website and take a look at those confirmed routes that were very much informed by a wide range of stakeholders, including the consultation that I just mentioned. For the year ahead, in terms of the project, we've got what we call our design freeze stage coming up, where we're sort of locking in these options. As I said, we're progressing our environmental impact assessments, lots of habitat and marine surveys ongoing, bird surveys, landowner engagement, as I mentioned, another round of public engagement, and just progressing generally with our environmental submissions with a view to gaining that consent. I also wanted to touch on sort of opportunity, supply chain and skills, which is very important. We've obviously just heard about skills as well. So yes, we have this relationship with College Llandrillo Menai. We've had that historically on an ongoing basis, been successfully trained up 30 plus apprentices, and 8 or 9 more were recruited this year. We recently announced that College Llandrillo is our national training hub now, so not just for the wind farms in North Wales, we're training people up for our wind farms all around the country, and we are supporting the brand new sort of engineering centre that is being developed hopefully at the real site. So also on the skills front, we are progressing our engagement with the North Wales Regional Skills Partnership, recently presented at a board meeting there, and we are pleased to note that we've also recently just teamed up with Bangor University for a PhD looking at sort of the seabed in the Liverpool Bay, and yeah, how we can work together to better understand and predict conditions. You've probably all seen offshore wind in the news a lot recently. Boris Johnson, UK government, very supportive of it. And what we're really interested in, given our presence in the region, is getting the message across that offshore wind is happening here and now, and we want North Wales to be ready to extract the opportunities. So you can see the range of sort of positive policy announcements there. We had the offshore wind sector deal released in 2019, and that's got a lot of focus on increasing UK supply chain content, and obviously given that North Wales already hosts offshore wind farms and is due to host more, we're really keen to make sure that that local supply chain content is achieved. There's also opportunities in floating wind demonstrations. I've got a slide on that briefly in a second, and we've developed something called the Offshore Energy Alliance, which is a new supply chain cluster in the region that covers North Wales and the Northwest, a bit similar to the nuclear arc around the Liverpool Bay area there. So we really encourage people to look us up on LinkedIn. It's a new cluster we are still developing, but yeah, please do get involved, because that's how we are getting the message across around the opportunities that are there for the local supply chain and skills. The port infrastructure, obviously North Wales has got, you know, a lot going for it in this sense. So again, think about what is needed for the future of offshore wind and how North Wales can really positively benefit from that, and the role it can play going forward. And we've already heard a lot about hydrogen as well today, an area that we're really interested in, and we think North Wales has a great opportunity to be at the forefront. I mentioned that offshore wind is here and now, it's also going forward, and this is really the key message from me today, is to ensure that North Wales is prepared and playing its part in the opportunities and ready to extract the benefits from the future of offshore wind. And just coming on to floating wind, this is, again, a real key area of focus for RWE. It's a global opportunity for growth. This was taken from a Carbon Trust report, and you know, in addition to fixed bottom offshore wind, floating wind is really exciting and coming up. And we think North Wales can help lead the way in floating wind. You've got a lot of floating wind focus in Scotland. There's no reason why North Wales and wider Wales shouldn't be leading the way in this as well. And there's a project, sort of a pre-commercial floating offshore wind opportunity that RWE is hopefully progressing, called Dragamore. So do, yeah, keep a lookout for that. And then I mentioned the cluster earlier, the Offshore Energy Alliance. This is all about raising awareness amongst local businesses in a timely way about the opportunities, the services, you know, everything that not only the offshore wind sector needs, it's born out of offshore wind, but we're open to, you know, teaming up and joining forces with other energy sectors that make sense. You know, you get transferable skills from oil and gas, for etc., and nuclear and other, you know, other low carbon energies and offshore energies as well. It's really about flying the flag for the local region in a collaborative way. We have we're collaborating with Mersey region, for example, very involved with the Mersey Alliance, hopefully going forward, and also the Cumbria region, so right around the bay there. Collaboration is really important for the benefit of the supply chain, noting that businesses can go anywhere really and work anywhere. And it's also delivers a number of activities and webinars, supply chain mapping, a range of themes. We had a recent webinar on floating wind with 250 plus registrations, and we're looking to progress a whole range of activities again for the benefit of the region and the companies that work here. So I think that's everything from me. That was sort of a mix of Owlermore update and Offshore Energy Alliance and general sort of, don't forget the wider UK government messages and how Wales and North Wales can home in on those as well. So that's the key messages from me.
And it's a good message. It's a very positive message. And thank you very much for your time this morning, Helen.
No worries.
Drosodd rwan i'r siaradwr nesa, John Idris Jones, ac bore yma dwi'n credu, John, bod chi'n mynd i roi diweddariad i ni ar gynllun Morlais yn ei llanw a morwrol Morlais. Felly drosodd i chi, John.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Pryderi, a diolch am y cyfle i roi diweddariad am Morlais. Mi driai symud ymlaen trwy'r sioe sleidiau yma yn gyflym. Dyma ni. Dwi'n siŵr o pawb ar yr alwad yn ymwybodol o'r hyn ydy Morlais, felly na'i'n dweud gormod am hyn. Parth arddangos llif llanw ydi o. Y bwriad ydy cael be mae Gerallt yn sôn amdano fel plug and play mwyaf ym Mhrydain, rhoi plwg yn y môr oddi ar arfordir Caergybi i alluogi datblygiad yn ei llif llanw. Mae Menter Môn yn rhedeg y prosiect a nod Morlais ydy sicrhau'r bydd mwyaf posib i'r ardal leol a sefydlu Ynys Môn fel canolfan flaengar ar gyfer y diwydiant tynnu morol. Felly mi fydd yna unrhyw ein lws yn deillio o Morlais yn cael ei ailfuddsoddi yn lleol drwy brosiectau Ynys Môn yn yr ardal yma. Felly jyst edrych yn sydyn, dyma ni yr parth, mae o oddi ar arfordir Ynys Cybi, a ydych chi'n gweld yna y llinell cyswllt gryd fydd yn rhaid roed yn ei le. Gwaith Morlais ydy cael y caniatâd cynllunio i alluogi datblygwyr rhoi i peiriannau yn y dŵr, a hefyd cael caniatâd cynllunio i roed yr is-adeiledd gryd yn ei le, ac yna rhoi'r is-adeiledd yna yn ei le ar gyfer y prosiect. Mae hwn jyst yn dangos yn bwriad ni i roi'r is-adeiledd rhedeg o yr hen safle aluminium Môn ar draws Ynys Cybi gyda'r plwg yn y môr yn cael ei roi jyst oddi ar yr arfordir i'r de o Ynys Lawd. Na i ddim sôn gormod am beth ydy yn ei llif llanw. Mae'r amgylchiadau oddi ar arfordir Caergybi yn golygu bod y llanw yn gry iawn. Mi fedra ni gael ynni yn cael ei ddefnyddio i gynhyrchu trydan gyda peiriannau sydd yn arnofio ar wyneb y dŵr, rheini sydd yn nghanol colofn y dŵr neu rheini sydd yn gorwedd ar wylod y dŵr. Ac yn fama mae gennym ni enghreifftiau o dechnolegau sydd eisoes wedi cael i'r rhoid a sydd yn cynhyrchu trydan. Mae hwnnw ar y dde yn dangos i ni technoleg fyrdant sydd eisoes yn cynhyrchu trydan yn Efrog Newydd. Mae hyn yn dangos y peiriannau yma yn mynd i fewn i'r dŵr. A'r technoleg, ar y chwith ar sgrin oedd hynny ag ar y dde, mae gennym ni technoleg orbital, technoleg sydd yn arnofio ar wyneb y dŵr, yr tiwban hir yna, tua ryw 80 medr o hyd, a mi welwch chi dan y dŵr yn y shot ucha y turbini ei hunain. Da ni wedi bod yn ffodus iawn i gael cefnogaeth gan gwahanol gyrff tuag at hyn, a'r corff diweddara sydd wedi dod i mewn i helpu gyda'r cefnogaeth ariannol ydy Cais Twf Gogledd Cymru. Mae arian ar gyfer Morlais A, sef y prosiect caniatau, da ni'n y ffes yna rwan, da ni'n mynd yn ymlaenau. Mae gwaith cael caniatau yn waith anodd, ac mae o'n gallu bod yn waith costus, oherwydd yr holl y waith sydd angen i wneud, y syrfes amgylcheddol ag ati. Ac yna mae'r gwaith rhoi'r is-adeiledd ag ati yn ei le hefyd yn brosiect costus iawn, ac eto da ni yn ffodus iawn o gael arian Ewrop, tra mae hwnnw'n para, a hefyd arian cyfatebol gan y Cais Twf. Lle da ni rwan? Wel, da ni'n mynd trwy'r sicrhau y caniatad drwy deddf trafnidiaeth a gwaith 1992. Da ni ar hyn o bryd yng nghanol ymchwiliad cyhoeddus. Mi gafwyd pythefnos o'r ymchwiliad cyndolig a mae yna wythnos arall i fynd dechrau wythnos nesaf. Mae'r gwaith yna, gwaith paratoi ar gyfer hynny, mae hynny wedi cymryd 3 blynedd i ni, ac da ni'n gobeithio a byddan ni'n medru cael penderfyniad gan Lywodraeth Cymru ar hyn ar ein cais ni yn mis Awst flwyddyn nesaf yma. Ar un pryd, am mynd trwy palafer deddf trafnidiaeth a gwaith, da ni hefyd gorfod cael trwyddedforol ar gyfer rhoi'r peiriannau yma yn y dŵr. Mae'r gwaith yma, da ni gorfod cael caniatad gan Gyfoeth Naturiol Cymru ar gyfer hynny. Mae'r gwaith yna hefyd yn mynd ymlaen yn gyfochrog ar gwaith deddf trafnidiaeth. Felly ar hyn o bryd, fel dwi'n dweud, da ni'n nghanol yr ymchwiliad cyhoeddus. Y gobaith ydy mi fyddan ni'n cael gwybod canlyniad yr ymchwiliad cyhoeddus ag ati ym mis Awst. A tu ar un pryd, da ni'n gobeithio cael clywed ynglyn â'n trwyddedforol. Be da ni'n rhagweld ydy mi fydd y caniatad yn dod. Y bwriad y prosiect i ddechrau ydy rhoi 240 megawatt o beiriannau trydanol yn y môr. Ond da ni'n rhagweld bydd rhaid gwneud hyn mewn cama i ni fedru dangos does na ddim effeithiau niweidiol ar yr amgylchedd ag ati. A da ni'n rhagweld mi fydd y cam cyntaf yn golygu y bydd y datblygwyr yn gallu rhoi rhwng 10 a 15 megawatt o beiriannau cynhyrchu trydan i fewn yn y dŵr. Ni yn gweithio gyda pherchnogion tir ag eraill ar gyfer hynny. Un o'r pethau pwysig mae datblygwyr technoleg a datblygwyr o prosiectau yn ein deitha ni ydy pris sydd yn cael ei dalu am y trydan. Felly, da ni yn gweithio gyda Llywodraeth Cymru a Llywodraeth Llundain i weld sut fath o ffyrdd sydd yna ar gael i sicrhau bod datblygwyr yn gallu cael pris teg i dalu am y gwaith maen nhw'n gorfod i wneud. Mae technoleg yn ei llif llanw yn technoleg ifanc iawn. Ac os edrychwn ni nôl, 20 mlynedd mi oedd Melina Gwynt ag ati yn cael arian mawr gan y Llywodraeth i datblygu. Ond bellach mae'r pris trydan o Melina Gwynt ag ati yn Isel. Ac dyna di'r rhan o'r gwaith sydd angen i wneud ar hyn o bryd, ydy sicrhau bod na bris teg i ddatblygwyr yn y dyddiau cynnar yma o'r diwydiant yma. Felly, be nesaf, unwaith da ni wedi cael y caniatad, da ni yn mynd ymlaen i adnabod y contractwyr ar gyfer gosod gwaith grid yn ei le a gwaith tyllu i fedru sicrhau bod ni'n gallu rhoi y plwg oddi ar yr arfordir. Da ni'n gweithio'n agos efo Cyfoeth Naturiol Cymru a Llywodraeth Cymru yn ogystal â tîm Cais Twf y Gogledd a Chyngor Sir Ynys Môn. A da ni'n rhagweld bydd na ddipyn o waith i wneud rhwng rwan a mis Tachwedd i glirio amodau cynllunio mwyn i ni sicrhau dechrau ar y gwaith. Mae hefyd lot o waith yn mynd ymlaen yn ymgysylltu gyda'r gadwyn gyflenwi lleol. Nod Menter Môn yn hyn i gyd ydy cadw'r bydd yn lleol, felly mae'r gwaith cadwyn gyflenwi yn bwysig iawn yn hyn o beth. A da ni'n gweithredu gyda nifer o'n datblygwyr ni ar gadwyn gyflenwi. Ac ni'n falch i glywed pryderu yn sôn am y digwyddiad tua blwyddyn yn ôl pan oedden ni tro dwytha ni'n gallu gweld wyneb yn wyneb pan fe wnaeth Morlais rannu gyda'r gadwyn gyflenwi yng Ngogledd Cymru y cyfleoedd posib. Ers hynny, da ni wedi bod yn gwneud gwaith gyda cwmnïau yng Ngogledd Cymru yn eu cyflwyno nhw i ddatblygwyr unigol. Mae'r cwmnïau yma sydd gynnon ni, pobl fel Verdant, Sabela ac Orbital ag ati, yn edrych am gwmnïau lleol i helpu nhw yn nherma'r gwaith datblygu. Ac yr ydyn ni yn targedu cael beth bynnag 100% o'r gwaith yna wedi cael ei wneud gan gwmnïau lleol. Felly mae hynny'n golygu os yna 100 megawatt wedi cael ei roed yn y dŵr erbyn 2030, yna mynd na fewn fuddsoddiad o beth bynnag yn nherma'r pres yna, beth bynnag 100 miliwn o bunna yn dod i fewn i'r ardal leol yna. Felly, jyst yn sydyn yn nherma'r gwaith, da ni'n gweld sicrhau yna waith yn mynd i gael ei greu allan ohono fo, sgiliau lleol, y cadwyn gyflenwi, mewn fuddsoddiad, ar ymchwil a datblygu technoleg. Bod hyn i gyd yn fydd sydd yn mynd i ddod i Ogledd Cymru a bod ni'n cadw'r arian yna'n lleol. Dyna dim bwriad ni yn hyn i gyd. Jyst yn sydyn iawn, a mae'n gynhyrfus iawn clywed hefyd am y prosiectau hydrogen, a na i jyst cyfeirio'n sydyn at y gwaith ma M-SParc yn wneud gydag hwb hydrogen Caergybi. Rydyn ni newydd apwyntio Gyto Owen yn gyfarwyddwr hydrogen i M-SParc, a mae cwmni Logan rwan yn gwneud gwaith manwl ar ddatblygu costa ag ati ar gyfer prisio gwaith o sefydlu hwb hydrogen yn yr ardal. Felly mae'n gyfnod cynhyrfus iawn i ynni carbon isel yng Ngogledd Cymru. Diolch yn fawr iawn chi.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, John. Ac mae'r cyfle hydrogen yng Nghaergybi yn un da ni'n edrych ymlaen i weld yn datblygu ac yn edrych ymlaen i weithio efo Gyto Owen ar y cyfle yna. Da ni wedi cael Gyto Owen yn rhan o'r gynhadledd yma sawl gwaith yn y gorffennol hefyd. Felly edrych ymlaen i weld y datblygiadau morlais a'r hwb hydrogen yn dod yn fyw dros y flwyddyn nesaf. John, diolch i chi am eich amser bore yma. On to our next speaker, which is Lisa Lafferty. Lisa's from the Welsh Government Energy Services and is joining us from New York, I understand. But over to you, Lisa.
Sorry for being a bit slow, everyone. Good morning. Yes, I am joining from New Jersey today, but I'm usually London-based, and I like to think that I've become an unofficial member of the Wales team over the last probably 2.5 years working in the region. So I'm going to share, I work for the Welsh Government Energy Service, and I want to share to you the work that we've been doing today on our regional energy planning. So we've been working with the different regions in Wales to develop regional energy plans. And so we start that work by understanding the baseline. So what are the current what's the current energy use and what are the current emissions from that use? We then have undertaken workshops to define a vision for each region of what the future energy system should look like, as well as identify key priorities. Following that, we've undertaken energy modeling, and the energy modeling looks at one pathway of how do we actually get on a trajectory for net zero carbon emissions. And I guess on the back of that, we then assessed looking at this energy transition, what does this mean for North Wales in terms of jobs, as well as what's the investment required and what is the associated GVA. And finally, currently we're in the kind of phase of the project where we're sharing and socializing everything we've done. And we are also in parallel looking at getting endorsement for the strategy and also looking at next steps in terms of a delivery or action plan. So this slide does a lot of things. It summarizes a lot of this process that I've just told you about. So the first thing that it tells us is about the vision that was developed. So the vision that we've come up with based on the stakeholder engagement is delivering maximum local, economic, social, ecological, and well-being benefits from transitioning to a net zero economy and becoming a net exporter of low carbon electricity through cross-border and regional cooperation. 4 key priorities were identified. So the first is to harness the abundance of local low carbon resources to become a green powerhouse and diversify the energy mix. The second is to become a world leader in offshore wind and marine technologies. The third is to improve the energy efficiency of the region's housing and building stock. And the final priority area is to achieve a shift to lower carbon transport. In this area or this area, depending on your preference, there is kind of a summary of the baseline. So where was North Wales when we started this? And we have been working on this project for some time, and the data that was available was 2017. So this is kind of going back a tiny bit, but it still will be quite relevant and hopefully interesting. So North Wales currently consumes around 23% of all energy consumed in Wales, which is just slightly higher on a pro rata basis than its 22% share of the Welsh population. Between 2017 and 2005, total energy fell by 5%, which is significantly less than the UK average, and that's mostly connected to the industrial energy consumption decreasing at a slower rate than the UK average. During the same period, emissions from energy consumption reduced by approximately 28%. So decarbonization of the electricity grid has meant that 5% energy reduction ended up achieving a 28 emissions reduction. In terms of like, if we look into, we've kind of looked at this in terms of energy used for different sectors. So about 30% is used in the domestic sector, 30% in transport, and 40% in the commercial and industrial sector. And if we dig down into that a little bit more and look, for instance, about the way that homes are heated in North Wales, it very much depends on if we're talking about a rural, semi-urban or urban area, just because of the mix of settings in the region. So local authorities like Gwynedd and Anglesey have a larger percentage of homes that aren't connected to the gas grid when compared with the other 4 local authorities in the region. So this means that those homes are tending to use more heating systems that use oil and solid fuel, which are more emissions intensive. At the same time, it means that those same homes are probably have been exploring low carbon heating solutions. So that means that North Wales has the 2nd highest percentage of homes that use renewable heat installations. So we've also looked at the energy efficiency of homes as part of this baseline. So North Wales, about 36% of homes are in EPC bands E, F, and G, compared to 23% in Great Britain, with an average rating of D. And this is fairly common. This is what we're seeing throughout Wales. It's probably worth noting. Despite this, there has been a fall in domestic energy consumption, and that's mostly related to lighting, more efficient appliances, but also behavior change. In terms of electricity generation, the landscape in North Wales has changed substantially over the last 10 years. So North Wales hosts about 1,100 megawatts of installed capacity, which is 37% of all renewable energy capacity in Wales. About 8 of it is locally owned. 62% of that, 61% of that installed capacity comes from offshore wind specifically, but that relates to 72% of generation because of the load factor. So for instance, if we were to consider solar PV, that has about 224 megawatts of installed capacity, which relates to about 7% of the renewable energy generated in the region. So our project did all the energy modeling and the jobs analysis went out to 2035, but we wanted to understand what it meant to be on a net zero trajectory. So by 2035, it means a 55% reduction in emissions. The way that our modeling has achieved that is split into these different sectors. So a 57% reduction in domestic, a 54% reduction in commercial and industrial, and a 55% reduction in transport. So this is kind of digging a little bit deeper into that energy modeling. And so that the energy modeling is basically a collection of actions that end up achieving that 55% decarbonization. And that happens along these 3 sectors. So for instance, in the domestic sector, we're seeing 35% of homes improving EPC band. We're seeing 30,000 homes being insulated, 65,500 heat pumps being installed, as well as a shift from fossil fuel intensive heating to lower carbon forms of heating. For the commercial and industrial sector, there's a 16% energy demand reduction, as well as switching to alternative fuels. So for instance, the modeling has included a small amount of hydrogen coming on and being used in the 2030s, as well as decarbonization of electricity through the use of renewables and behind the meter generation. For road transport, we have modeled a shift to ultra low emission vehicles, with 55% of vehicles being electric by 2035. We've also modeled a 50% reduction in private vehicle mileage with increased public transport. There are other vehicle types that were also modeled. So for instance, there is inclusion of 1,000 hydrogen vehicles as well as gas HGVs. So those are the 3 sectors that get us to that, and the collection of actions that get us to that 55% by 2035. We have also looked at renewable electricity generation in the region. The caveat is the modeling has put this as part of broader UK decarbonization of the electricity grids. So that's kind of the approach that it's taken. And one of the really great things when we look at North Wales in particular is the diversity of different technology options that there's a potential for in the region. So the modeling has included 2.8 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2035, a 300 megawatt small modular nuclear reactor, 310 megawatts of onshore wind, as well as tidal stream and tidal lagoon. we did seek to understand what this means in terms of economic impact. You can see these kind of summarized on the slide here. Just very quickly, electricity generation net jobs over that 15 time period is about 64,000 and domestic energy efficiency about 21,000. Domestic heat is difficult to get good data on, so that's an important caveat for the jobs figure that you see there. And finally, 15 billion investment is estimated to be required over that 15-year period for that whole collection of kind of things that we just saw on the previous slide. But it's very much worth highlighting that a lot of that is going to come from the private sector, and a lot of that will be related to the kind of capital required for large generation projects. So thank you very much for letting me share our project with you today.
Lisa, wonderful, and on time as well, and leading us very nicely to our last speaker. I'm claiming on time, but we're going to finish with a review and a statement perhaps on the energy, long-awaited, shall we say, long-awaited energy white paper that was published recently. And Ron Loveland, the Welsh Government Energy Advisor, is going to lead us on this session. I should add as well that Ron, earlier on in your career, was one of the first directors of M-SParc. So it's very nice to have you join us for this event as well, Ron. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Bryn-Derek. Can I try and share my screen? One. Okay. Bore da. Good morning, everyone. It's been a truly fascinating morning. Some time ago, Rhys asked me to talk in this workshop about the UK government's energy white paper, and looking at who else is speaking, I asked to speak at the end, and that is because I think most of these points that you have on the slide have been covered. But let me try and briefly explain where my view of the world. I have a very simple view, which is that at the moment we are sort of sitting on a fossil fuel mountain, looking across the valley to the next mountain, which is the net zero mountain with the 2050 net zero targets on the top of that. And the question is how we move down the fossil fuel mountain across the valley and up the net zero mountain to the summit. So we know where we're going, we know where we want to be by with things like the UK government's energy white paper, the 10-point green recovery plan, the sort of regional strategies that Lisa has so well explained, and stuff like the UK CCC 6 carbon budget is really providing sort of markers on the landscape rather than the paths to actually get to where we want to go. And what's been nice this morning is that each of the speakers has really started to tell us, for North Wales, but clearly the paths are more widely applicable, how in North Wales we can actually devise these paths and move forward. And my other mantra at the moment is, human ingenuity got us into this climate mess, and it's going to be human ingenuity that overcomes the challenge. And what we've seen this morning, I think, is that ingenuity in action. So briefly, in the time available, running through the 10-point plan, clearly advancing offshore wind, we've heard all about that from Helen. The growth of low carbon hydrogen, Joe very much featured that, but others have touched upon it. Nuclear power, Bill has explained the exciting world in North Wales. The zero emission vehicles, not covered in any great depth, but certainly touched upon by Amanda and Faye. Green public transport, cycling and walking, and Amanda's plan will take us there, as will the regional energy strategy that Lisa has described. We haven't so much touched on point 6, and yet North Wales is involved. Jet Zero has a lead in Airbus looking at hydrogen aircraft, and clearly green ships will be important to the Port of Holyhead. Greener buildings, many people have touched on this in one form or another, including Lisa, Amanda, and Grant. Capture carbon and usage, Joe talked about that. We haven't discussed protecting our natural environment, but it's inherent in the respect for the natural environment in North Wales that will happen, and clearly NRW will play a very strong role in that. And then the very important world of green finance and innovation that Lisa briefly touched upon. It's a fascinating subject in itself, since there is a wall of money out there ready to invest in green projects, but those investors want some secure and guaranteed returns, and it's the confidence that each of the players in this world can put into this, which will be important as we go forward. This slide doesn't cover the supply chains and skills that Brinderi and Brian, Paul, Brinderi and Paul were covering. But the supply chains and skills very much feature in the Energy White Paper, as does the importance of networks. What the Energy White Paper doesn't do, which is disappointing and we need to correct, is it's not very strong on what will happen in local energy. We've heard a lot about that from Grant and others, and it's not very strong at all on marine in the form of tidal stream and tidal lagoons, something else which is important to North Wales, and we will move forward on that as Johnny just has explained. Just to finish, I have another slide on hydrogen, but I won't show that. If you go to the Welsh Government website, you will see what we are doing in terms of a draft hydrogen pathway. I have put on the chat box where we stand in terms of Wales's energy strategy, and that's basically covered at the moment by the ministerial statement that Leslie Griffiths made before Christmas, and I say there's a web link on the chat box. What I would finish off, anybody who's listening to me when I was talking in a slightly more depth about where we were going with energy in Wales, which is very much in an exploratory phase, I emphasised 3 key principles. One was on collaboration, both locally and more widely, and many people have demonstrated the importance of that principle today. There's the principle of innovation, the human ingenuity that we need to mobilise to get us where we want to go, and we have heard many examples of that today. And then the importance of a fair transition, and one which takes people along with us, and certainly Grant, talking about his community energy work, very much sort of cover that. So I think this morning has, as I say, exemplified what all of these words mean in practice. It's just now a question, as I say, of mobilizing that human ingenuity, including the finance and expertise to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. I'll just wrap up. I think we've covered so much in 2 hours. It's I think the word I wrote down here was wow. I think the breadth of stuff that is going on, I think, is fantastic. You can pick it up in the chat. A lot of people have commented on the fact they didn't know about all of this activity that's underway. I think some of the key messages are and have been about the local benefits and local ownership, making sure it's a fair transition, because we are looking at developments going into the future now. So we need to make sure that that transition is fair and we get the maximum benefits. I think there were some useful messages in the chats around links to the housing associations and to retrofit, because lots of organisations have got ambitions to do lots of work on their building stock. So again, there's some skills and supply chain opportunities there which are quite current. That these are quite near term. I think people, is a key word I want to emphasise. People, people are inherent in all of this. The energy system is there to supply us with power, to keep us warm, keep us safe, and keep people in work and keep our communities alive. So it's really important that we don't forget that people are kind of at the heart of this. I noticed as well, linked to the youth and the children, and I think I mentioned it at the end of my slide about the future generations. Really important. And I think, thinking about these kind of messages, my kids are back home now, they're downstairs making noise. I'm sure it's quite a good time maybe to have some kind of webinar engaging with our schools and putting something on for kids, because I'm sure parents would be really happy to put them in front of a webinar with some of the stuff we've covered today, to really tell them the story of what North Wales has got to offer. I think that the only thing I need to say at the end is the main thing. Thank you to everyone that's watched and joined. That's fantastic that you've joined us today and spent 2 hours with us. A massive thanks to colleagues in M-SParc, especially Emily, for facilitating and organising all of this behind the scenes, and colleagues within the Welsh Government Energy Service as well for helping to market and promote the event today. Massive thank you to the speakers, obviously, because you can see from the feedback, people have really been impressed and engaged in the messaging and the activity that you're leading on. And I think the key thing is what Ron said, collaboration, innovation, and fairness going forward. And I think collaboration, this is what today's about, isn't it? It's about telling each other what we're doing, and sharing knowledge, not keeping it to ourselves, sharing what we're doing so that we can look for opportunities to work together going forward. Thanks to Pryderu as well for hosting, been a really slick event, and thank you for doing that. And that's it, I think, for the day. Join the LinkedIn group. I think we mentioned it a couple of times. That'll be maybe the interface going forward, and we can hopefully build on that and have future events with Egni going forward. So diolch i bawb. Thank you again.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i chdi, Rhys. Thank you, Rhys. And I'd like to thank the translator as well. Thank you, Rhiannon, for keeping us going. Diolch yn fawr iawn, bawb.